The moment I heard the sirens, I knew my life was about to change, but I never imagined it would start with a plane falling out of the sky and end with someone trying to have me arrested. 1 second I was standing near the fence, watching smoke curl upward like a bad omen. And the next, a woman I barely knew was pointing at me, screaming that I caused everything. If you think that sounds insane, trust me, it only gets worse from here. And what happened next shocked even the authorities. The small aircraft didn't explode like in the movies. It came down hard in an empty field near our neighborhood, metal screeching against dirt, propeller twisted like a broken toy. Everyone ran toward the crash site, phones out, panic everywhere. I stayed back, calling emergency services, trying to keep people calm. That's when she appeared, the kind of person who thrives on chaos. Later I'd learn her name, but at that moment she was just a furious stranger with wild eyes and a mission. She started shouting that I had interfered with the plane's landing path, that something on my property caused the crash. At first, I laughed, thinking it was stress talking, but she wasn't joking. She was dead serious, telling anyone who would listen that I was responsible and needed to be arrested immediately. Her voice cut through the noise like a siren of its own, drawing attention, feeding suspicion. Police arrived quickly, followed by firefighters. I expected questions, maybe confusion, but not handcuffs. Still, when she marched up to an officer and pointed directly at me, my stomach dropped. She claimed she had proof, said I was reckless, dangerous, a threat. The words hung in the air, heavy and unfair. Neighbors whispered. Cameras rolled. Suddenly, I wasn't just a witness, I was a suspect. I tried to explain calmly that I had nothing to do with the plane, that I was nowhere near it before the crash. Some officers listened. Others just nodded, clearly overwhelmed. That's when she made the call that changed everything. Right in front of me, she demanded higher authorities get involved. She wanted charges. She wanted an arrest. She wanted me gone. What she didn't realize was that this wasn't just a local issue anymore. A plane crash triggers a whole different level of scrutiny, and forces far beyond her control were already on their way. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any crazier, it did. Within hours of the crash, I received a call from someone identifying themselves as an FAA investigator. My first thought was, why would the FAA call me? I hadn't even touched the plane or been near the runway. But as it turns out, the FAA doesn't just investigate mechanical failures. They investigate claims, reports, and anything that could potentially impact aviation safety. And apparently, our little neighborhood incident had already triggered their radar. I explained everything calmly to the investigator, detailing my movements that day, my attempts to help at the crash site, and, most importantly, that I had zero involvement in the incident. He listened carefully, taking meticulous notes, asking about timelines, eyewitnesses, and anything that could corroborate my story. Meanwhile, news crews were circling, neighbors were gossiping, and Karen, the woman who had tried to pin this on me, was spreading her version of events like wildfire. It was a surreal feeling, knowing that someone could so brazenly accuse me, yet also knowing that a federal authority was now on my side. The FAA started its investigation methodically, contacting witnesses, reviewing flight data, and examining the plane itself. Their professionalism contrasted sharply with Karen's chaotic accusations. Every piece of data they uncovered painted a clear picture. The crash was caused by mechanical failure, not anything I did or didn't do. But Karen didn't back down. She escalated things, calling local authorities again, trying to pressure them into making an arrest. It was like watching someone flail in the dark, while the light of facts shone brightly around them. Officers returned, asking me to stay calm and let the investigation unfold. That was easier said than done, especially when whispers and side glances made me feel like a marked person in my own community. During the FAA's review, I learned something astonishing. Even small claims like Karen's are documented, cross-checked and fact-verified. It wasn't just that they had authority, it was that they had power backed by precision, by facts, and by an unwavering system that doesn't bend to hysteria. Within a few days, the FAA's findings began to emerge. My name cleared, the crash attributed solely to technical issues, and Karen's accusations officially debunked. Despite the relief, the emotional toll was real. I'd been dragged into a nightmare I never asked for, yet there was a strange sense of validation to seeing the truth come out, knowing that even in a chaotic moment, facts would win over fear and false accusations. It was a lesson in patience, in trusting systems bigger than ourselves, and in the absurdity of human overreaction. With the FAA investigation clearing my name, you might think the nightmare was over, but Karen wasn't done yet. In fact, she seemed more determined than ever to make me the villain of the story. After all, her reputation for confrontation was well known in the neighborhood, And now that she had been proven wrong by the FAA, she didn't handle it gracefully. Instead of backing off, she doubled down, spreading rumors and trying to rally neighbors to her side. It started with whispers and strange looks whenever I stepped outside. Friends would nod politely, but Karen's stories had already seeded doubt in some minds. She told anyone who would listen that the FAA had overlooked evidence, that I had somehow slipped through the cracks, and that justice had not truly been served. The audacity of it was staggering. Meanwhile, I stayed calm, letting the FAA's official report speak for itself. Publicly arguing with her would only fuel her narrative. And privately, I had to manage the stress and the sudden anxiety of being targeted. Then came the confrontation. One afternoon, she knocked on my door looking furious. Her eyes were blazing, her voice trembling with anger as she demanded an explanation, accusing me of lying to the authorities and covering up the truth. I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. I explained once again that the FAA had investigated thoroughly, shared their findings, and had officially cleared me of any wrongdoing. She wasn't convinced. She accused me of manipulating the system, of somehow getting lucky. At that moment, I realized this wasn't about the plane crash anymore. It was about control and ego. Karen had an image of herself as the person who should be right, who should have the authority to enforce consequences. When reality didn't match her expectations, her fury turned outward. But I refused to be intimidated. I documented everything, maintained records of FAA reports, and kept interactions civil but firm. My goal wasn't to win a battle with her. It was to protect myself and my peace of mind. Eventually, Karen's campaign started to backfire. Neighbors began asking questions, reviewing the FAA's findings, and noticing inconsistencies in her stories. The more she pushed, the more isolated she became. Meanwhile, I focused on moving forward, helping the community understand the real facts of the crash, and highlighting the importance of relying on official investigations rather than rumors. It was exhausting, but it was also empowering, knowing that truth, evidence, and patience could dismantle even the most persistent false accusations. By the end of it, Karen's fury had turned into quiet frustration. She realized that no matter how loudly she shouted, the facts could not be erased. And I learned a vital lesson. In moments of chaos, staying calm, following the facts, and trusting proper authorities is far more powerful than reacting with anger or fear. The dust finally settled, and for the first time since the plane crash, I could breathe without the constant weight of accusation hanging over me. Karen's attempts to have me arrested had failed spectacularly. Thanks to the FAA's thorough investigation, and the truth was undeniable. Yet, even with the official reports in hand, the experience left scars, both emotional and social. I realized that some battles aren't just about facts. They're about human behavior, ego, and perception. In the days following the FAA's report, I focused on rebuilding my sense of normalcy. Neighbors who had been swayed by Karen's claims slowly came back around, apologizing for jumping to conclusions. The community, though shaken, began to understand the real story, that a tragic accident had occurred. But no one in the neighborhood, including me, was at fault. The entire ordeal had been a harsh reminder of how quickly misinformation can spread and how damaging false accusations can be. I also reflected on how easily fear and anger can escalate situations. Karen's actions weren't malicious. In the typical sense, they were fueled by panic and an inflated sense of authority. She wanted control. She wanted to feel righteous. And when reality didn't cooperate, she lashed out. Watching this unfold was unsettling, but it taught me a valuable lesson. Some people will fight harder for their narrative than for the truth. And understanding that dynamic is crucial for staying grounded. One of the most surprising parts of this journey was discovering the efficiency and professionalism of the FAA. Their investigation was meticulous, impartial, and unwavering, and it highlighted the importance of relying on proper authorities rather than letting emotions dictate judgment. From reviewing flight logs to interviewing witnesses, they left no stone unturned, and their findings were crystal clear. I had nothing to do with the crash, and Karen's claims were baseless. Their involvement wasn't just helpful, it was transformative, turning a chaotic, potentially career-ruining situation into one resolved with undeniable facts. Finally, I learned the importance of documentation and patience. Every call, every interaction, every official record mattered. When chaos strikes, keeping a clear record and trusting systems that work can protect you more effectively than arguing or reacting emotionally. As for Karen, she eventually faded from the center of the story, left with her frustration and her unheeded warnings. Meanwhile, I moved forward, wiser, more cautious, and more appreciative of the stability that truth and accountability provide. In the end, the plane crash became a story of resilience, patience, and the undeniable power of facts over fear. It was a reminder that chaos may be unavoidable, but how you respond defines the outcome. And no matter how loud the accusations, truth has a way of prevailing. The story ends here, but the lessons last a lifetime. If you enjoyed this chaos, don't forget to hit subscribe, smash that like button, and drop a comment below telling us what you would do if you were in my shoes.